All right, let's get Ryan Wilson and Pete Prisco in here from the Combine. They're going to give us some pro comps for some of the top prospects, including the #1 overall prospect, Bryce Young. Some have compared him, and I'm not going to name names, Pete, but some have compared him to Steph Curry. Who would you compare him to?
Well, that would be Rick Spielman, by the way, who compared him to Steph Curry. It's a terrible comparison, considering they don't play the same sport. But the guy I would compare him to, there is nobody. That's part of the problem with his evaluation is he's 5'10", 195 pounds, maybe 200 if he eats a good meal at St. Elmo's tonight. It's just not a big quarterback, and there's concerns about that. So when have we ever seen a 5'10", 195-pound quarterback? We haven't, and that's the point. That's why you can't do a player comp. Now, Emory Hunt had a really good comparison for him. Fran Tarkington. Now, that's way back. Most people don't remember Fran Tarkington. I don't think he's quite the same comparison, but that's pretty close. It's too tough to find a guy who is like Bryce Young, and that's why he's a tough comparison.
Hassel, I'm smiling over here because Pete has plenty of problems that he likes to raise with no solutions, and that sounds about par for the course. So while you have no player comp other than Fran Tarkenton, I would at least offer a player comp, Pete. I originally went with Drew Brees. You laughed at that. I had a scout text me immediately and say that wasn't a very good one. I was offered up Russ Wilson, and there are definitely differences, and Pete talked about the biggest one being the size. Russ at the Combine was 5'11", and he weighed over 200 pounds. That's not going to be the case almost certainly with Bryce Young, no matter how many steaks he eats. But in terms of the way he plays in the pocket, his mobility, his ability to avoid big hits, to throw with anticipation, to throw a good deep ball, all those things Bryce Young does. But Pete is right. There is no comp ever in the history of football when you're talking about a guy going top 5, potentially top overall, Chris. And that's what makes Bryce Young so special. Steph Curry special? Maybe if you're Rick Spielman, not if you're Pete Prisco, but certainly a very special football player.
Yeah, at least Rick compared him to somebody, even if that somebody doesn't play football.
There is nobody, Chris. He's one of a kind. He's a unicorn. There's nobody in the history of the game that is him. It's hard to compare him to him.
Which is why some still have the jury out on him as the #1 overall pick and as the #1 quarterback, for that matter. Let's go to his teammate, who I think is a lot more of a sure thing in the NFL, but he's not a quarterback. He's an edge rusher, though. Will Anderson. Ryan, who would you comp him to?
I'll preface this by saying, Chris, that Pete does not like this comp as well, but I feel pretty good about it. And Pete's comp, we can compare. I'm going to go with Von Miller. Pete, is he as explosive as Von Miller?
No.
He's not. I will grant you that, but he is a top 5 football player. He's probably he's definitely in the conversation as the first non-quarterback off the board. If the Bears had to pick someone, they're taking Will Anderson, and I think that's not even a stretch to say. So Will Anderson had a fantastic run at Alabama. He's incredibly explosive, even if he's not Von Miller, and I think there's a lot to like about his game, and I will give you that he's not Von Miller 2.0. What do you think he is?
He's Khalil Mack. I mean, that's the closest comparison I've come to him. He's not as big as Khalil Mack.
Will Anderson,
physically.
we talked to him today. He said he is Khalil Mack.
Will Anderson said he was Khalil Mack, and I've been saying that all along. I think he reminds me of Khalil Mack. You talk about suddenness and the ability to bend and get around the corner. That's not who he is. I wanted to believe that. And, you know, Derek Thomas came from Alabama. He's not even in the same zip code as
People
Derek
in Alabama
Thomas.
would disagree.
Well, they're wrong, because Derek Thomas was special when he bent the corner and exploded up the field. This guy isn't that. He's a good football player. He's not a dynamic pass rusher, so he's Khalil Mack for me.
Two really good NFL players, though, and good comparisons. If he ends up like either one of those guys, I think the team that drafts him will be happy. How about Clemson defensive lineman, probably going to play in the interior, Brian Bresee? Ryan, I don't think he was in your latest first-round mock, was he?
No, Chris, and he wasn't, and it's an interesting story. So he tore his ACL back in 2021, had a family tragedy that he dealt with over the course of last season, and all those things affected him. And we talked about it today with him on the set. He is a fantastic young man, 5-star coming out. When he is on, he is extremely explosive. And Pete, we straight up asked him who he compared himself to, and I think this is probably the best comp because it's a tough one given his size, his physicality, and his strength. He said Chris Jones. And Chris Jones, if you get Chris Jones out of Brian Bresee, you've hit an absolute home run, and that's what he aspires to. Now, the tape was up and down for a lot of different reasons, and NFL teams know that, but I think he has a chance with the athleticism to be a really good football player.
Yeah, and what he fought through last year, we can't put any type of evaluation on because his younger sister passed away. I mean, and he missed time for that, and then he got hurt, and he got sick. I mean, he had a bunch of things going on. He missed the year before with the knee injuries you mentioned. I think he's a Ndamukong Suh. I think he's one of those explosive up-the-field guys, good first step. Not a big physical run player, but I think he's got the ability to push the pocket.
Yeah.
I think Ndamukong Suh is the comp for me.
All right, we're doing pro comps with Ryan Wilson and Pete Prisco here. Let's move on to the only running back that Ryan has in his latest first-round mock, Bijan Robinson of Texas. Pete?
Yeah, and Bijan Robinson is a special running back. And having said that, you guys know I don't pick running backs in the first round. I might consider him at the back end of the first round, but he's one of those guys in a deep running back class, which is why I wouldn't take him. I think this running back class is outstanding. I wouldn't take him in the first round, but he reminds me of Saquon Barkley. He's got that explosive ability. He's got the ability to run between the tackles. He's a power player, and when you watch him on tape, he makes people miss, and he can run over people and catch the football. Saquon Barkley is the obvious comparison for him, and people will say, well, if you're getting Saquon Barkley, would you draft him in the top 10? Most people would say yes. I still would say no.
I don't know if most people would say that. I did my top 25 before coming here this week, Pete, and I had Bijan at number 7. But right, it's going to be a question of if he falls to 22, which team ends up taking him at the bottom of the first round. If the Chiefs or Eagles take him, that makes those offenses much more explosive. But I'm with you. This running back class, is incredibly deep. And also, you're doing the math on where you're going to take someone like Bijan, who is a special talent. Like you, I have Saquon because it's hard to find. You talk about Bryce Young not having another comp. It feels like Saquon, and that's it when you talk about Bijan.
Ryan, did you notice that Pete woke up today and said, you know what? I'm going to dress up just like the chair that I'm sitting in all day.
That is. I didn't realize that, Chris. I decided to blend in. I blend in well. I'm a team player. I want to make it easy on everybody.
Except for your extremely tan skin. Looking good out there, guys.
Wait, no, did you hear producer Noah? He said Pete's comp is the chair.
That is good.
Oh, they're killing you, Pete. They're killing you.
That's funny, Noah. Now I'm not coming on next week.
Oh, Pete Prisco, Ryan Wilson, live from the Combine. We really pick things up on Thursday when we start getting these athletes out on the field, defensive linemen and linebackers. Friday, defensive backs. Saturday, we got the quarterbacks, wide receivers, and tight ends, and then the running backs and offensive linemen on Sunday.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.